In the last 2 weeks, 2 major Christian denominations took stands on Palestine that would have been unthinkable a decade ago. On June the 30th, the Presbyterian Church USA, the largest Presbyterian body in the country, voted 454 to 15 to call the war in Gaza a genocide. They didn't just issue a statement, they divested from companies such as General Electric Aerospace and Palantir, whose technologies powered Israeli military. Then, on July 13th, the General Synod of the Church of England passed a historic motion to listen to the voices of Palestinian Christians. Archbishop of Canterbury, Sarah Mulary, said at the Synod, the urgency of the situation in the Holy Land demands we have difficult conversations. 2 denominations, 2 historic roles, and as an Anglican theologian watching from across the Atlantic, I want to tell you why these motions matter and what they tell us about the long and complicated history of the Church and the Holy Land. Let me start with the Church of England because this is personal to me. The Anglican Church has a very long history in Palestine. Protestant missions in the Holy Land began in 1841 with the Anglo-Prussian bishopric in Jerusalem. Missionaries established churches, schools, and hospitals. Missionary schools trained Arab young people who later became leaders of the Palestinian Arab movement. But because of the long history of anti-Semitism in the Church and British society, the Church of England had been rather cautious on the issue of Palestine. This changed on July 13th. The Reverend Fatih Diab, a Palestinian Anglican priest who serves as the rector of St. Andrew's Church in Ramallah, was there. He spoke at the Synod. He said that after the motion was passed, that the motion did not just happen overnight. It is the fruit of years of prayers, dialogue, pilgrimage, theological reflections, and conversations with different groups and communities. What Diab is describing is the slow, patient work of Palestinian Christians and their families who refused to have their voices silenced. I first went to the Holy Land to attend a church conference. I remember that we gathered at Amman, the capital of Jordan, and we will take a bus to cross the border. When the bus arrived at the border, I saw long lines of Palestinian women and men and their families lining up to try to cross into Israel to visit their families and communities. Our bus arrived. We stopped, have our passports and visas checked. All of us were allowed to pass through. I didn't know how many Palestinians would be allowed to do so. Our bus passed River Jordan, where Jesus was baptized, and then we had our conference in Jerusalem. But I didn't remember the holy sites that I visited. I remember very vividly one scene. We were walking down a street in Jerusalem, and I saw people setting up tables with typewriters on them. And I asked the guide, what were they doing? I was told they were setting up to interpret government forms and different notices for the Palestinians because the Palestinians, many of them, did not understand Hebrew, the official language. This scene reminded me of what I saw when I was a kid in the British colony of Hong Kong. The majority of the Chinese people there did not understand English, but English at that time was the official language, so they needed interpreters to help them. And I saw similar small tables and people trying to help them filing the forms with those old typewriters. And as we traveled to different places to visit different groups and communities, we passed by many checkpoints. And of course, our cars were stopped and we were questioned. Then on the street, I also saw young Israeli soldiers carrying long guns. At one time during our trip, I also remember a very memorable scene. A group of Jewish kids were going somewhere, and then in front of the group and behind the group, I saw adults holding long guns to protect them. I thought, how could two people who have suffered so much live in such an unthinkable situation? During the trip, I also had the opportunity of meeting Palestinian Anglican theologian, the Reverend Naim Ateek, at St. George's Cathedral when he was a pastor there. After my return, I decided to know more about the history of the Anglican Church in the Holy Land and about the situation of Palestine. The relationship of the Church of England with Palestine was tricky. In the spring of 2024, the then Archbishop of Canterbury, Justin Welby, cancelled a meeting with Reverend Munther Isaac, the Palestinian Lutheran pastor whose Christmas sermon, Christ in the Rubble, went viral around the world. Welby was advised that meeting with Isaac will harm relationship with the Jewish community. When Reverend Isaac heard about the cancellation, he said, "This sums up the Church of England. They dance around positions that end up saying nothing. They lack the courage to say something." Welby later apologized and met with Isaac. And now, 2 years later, the same church has passed a motion with overwhelming support in the houses of bishops, clergy, and laity. Something shifted. Now, if the Church of England's vote was historic, what the Presbyterians did 2 weeks earlier was even more dramatic. The PCUSA General Assembly didn't just pass a resolution. They used the word genocide. They voted to divest from companies that had been used by the Israeli military and from General Electric Aerospace, which provides engines and components used in military operations that human rights groups have called war crimes. They also call on the Presbyterians to lobby Congress for an arms embargo and to boycott Israeli products tied to the war. So why am I telling you this? Why does an Anglican theologian care about this? Because I have been trying to understand the Anglican Church's relationship with Palestine for a long time. When the Israeli military bombed the Anglican Ali Arab Hospital in Gaza in October 2023, a hospital started by the Church Missionary Society missionaries, I went looking for resources, books, and histories. I wanted to understand how did the church begin work in Gaza. I couldn't find what I needed. So I am editing a book, a collection of voices, Palestinians and international scholars and church leaders that traces the Anglican Church's presence in Palestine and connects that history to the present crisis. Next week, I will be speaking with Reverend Ateek, the Palestinian priest who spoke at the Church of England Synod. Because what happened to Palestinian Christians, the Ecclesia Naba, the destruction of churches, and the exile of Arab Christians from the Holy Land. I want to hear his story. If you want to understand what's happening in the church right now, not just the headline, but the theology behind them, subscribe. And if this resonated with you, I have written more on my Substack. The link is below.